Welcome to Mechanical Advantage Garage. I'm Kerry, and as you can see, the 57 Corvette that my family owns is behind me, which means I am not in Ohio at the moment. So you might think that this is an episode of cool Corvette content, but other than the absolutely gorgeous new leather seats that Dad put in the car that are 2 to 3 inches smaller than the stock seats, and I gotta tell you, they look gorgeous. No, this is not about Corvette content this week. I did something stupid. I bought a motorcycle while I was in New York. This is my 1971 Harley-Davidson XLCH Ironhead Sportster, right? And they're called Ironheads because the rocker boxes up here, which are chrome, they're actually aluminum, but they're not the head. This is the head, and it's an iron head, and it's an iron barrel. So the cylinder, the head is iron, but the rockers are on a shaft that go through the valve covers, so that's why they're called rocker boxes. But yeah, it's an Ironhead Harley-Davidson. Astute Ironhead aficionados will notice that this is wrong for an Ironhead. And I got this bike for a good deal. And the reason I got this bike for a good deal is this little baby right up here, this blue sticker, okay? That is a Connecticut issued VIN. Okay, the actual VIN is here, and it does match the case numbers down there, which identify this as a 1971 XLCH. And the casting here, the neck casting, is a 1970 to 73-ish casting. Officially, it's supposed to be used till 72, but they kept using them in 73. I've gone over this bike a few times, and had some friends of mine who are Ironhead aficionados and experts look at it. And then I had some friends, I posted to the Facebook groups that I belong to for Ironheads and had them weigh in on it. And the general consensus is that this is a 1973 frame. It is not cut up or patched together or, was made in some way, half of one and half of the other. This is a replacement frame from Harley-Davidson. So what we think happened is the bike was probably wrecked sometime around 1973, and Harley issued a replacement frame with VIN number, and Connecticut certified it as road safe and issued it a VIN. So the title matches this blue tag here. It doesn't match the original VIN. It's not particularly a problem, but for people who are fans of this motorcycle, it hurts the value quite a bit, which is good for me because I don't plan on putting it back to stock. Although I do like 1971 year, I don't know. The colors are a little funny. It has the weird Sportster graphic that just says Sportster really big across the tank here. But this actually has a lot of the upgrades that I've wanted to do to my 74 Ironhead for a long time. And we'll go over some of those right now. But let's just do a quick walk around so you can see this thing, because it's kind of fun, I didn't plan on buying a motorcycle. This actually has kind of an interesting story to it. A friend of mine won this in a raffle. Apparently it's a thing now when you're moving in New York City. If you have a lot of stuff to move and you don't want to move with it, you can set up for a raffle if it's desirable things. So this was in a raffle with a square body Chevy and a few other things that a friend of mine was kind of interested in. And he was hoping to win the square body Chevy, but he won this instead. And it's a properly pretty bike, but he already has 5 bikes and lives in New York City, so he can't really keep it. I don't hate it. I think it'll make a good addition to the fleet. But let's go over some of the upgrades here that have been done to this bike. So the first thing you'll notice is I've said it's an XLCH, but there's this thing. And XLCHs are kickstart bikes only up in these years. Later, I think 79, they discontinued the CH designation and they made them all electric start. But, or no, it's in the 80s, sometime in the early 80s, not 79, excuse me. But from the factory, you either had an XLCH, which was a kickstart only, or an XLH, which was the touring model, which is a electric start only. Very rarely did you have both. Now, they do sell an aftermarket clutch hub that has both provisions for it. The old days, the old way of doing it was to take a clutch hub that was a kickstart clutch hub and to weld or press fit the ring for the starter gear on it, and that's how you got both on there. But that's also why it has the kidney oil tank. XLCHs would have the little lunchbox oil tank and a tiny battery. This actually has a tiny battery because it's a Shore-Eye lithium-ion battery, but it still has the kidney oil tank and the big battery box. But it is a cool thing to have, both an electric leg and a manual leg. The other thing you'll notice here is this tank doesn't quite look right, and that's because that is a 3-gallon King tank. Those are reproduction tanks. They're the same size, they're the same shape as an original Sportster tank, but they actually hold 3 gallons, or 3.2 instead of 2.2. So you can actually go somewhere on this bike. One of the biggest upgrades here that I'm a huge fan of is 1971 was still a drum brake bike. Ironhead Harley Sportsters would not get disc brakes until 1973, and even then it would only get a single disc. This is a 1972 and up Super Glide, but also 1977 and up Ironhead front end with dual discs and dual calipers. And somebody put braided lines all the way up through the whole thing. When I got this, actually, the whole system, and here's a brand new master cylinder too, by the way. When I got this, there was no fluid in the system, so I got out the reverse bleeder and bled it through the what do you call it, the bleeder valves, and fluid came out of every one of these fittings here because nobody had tightened anything. So yeah, but you can see there's the copper crush washers. They're all brand new. The discs are okay. They got a little bit of, nothing I can really catch a nail on, but I can feel they have some scoring, and they'll probably get replaced at some point. It does have an eBay or Amazon LED headlight, but it is a DOT SAE headlight, so whoever put it on was actually thinking about safety. The bars are in interesting shape. I was told by my friend that the previous owner who had sort of assembled this bike had bent those bars himself. And they're interesting. They're kind of off-center a little bit here. If you notice, this side is shorter than this side. But at your hands, they're actually perfectly centered. So it's weird. The clutch cable was, not the clutch cable, the clutch perch was kind of loose, and I just tightened it. So that's why it's not in the same spot as the brake lever. Actually, the clutch perch itself probably needs some work, because you can see here it's two different types of fasteners. It's a Phillips head screw with a flathead slot in it, and a Allen key down here with a nut on the back, which leads me to believe that somebody stripped out the bottom here and then just put a screw and a nut in it so that it would hold its place, which is okay. I mean, these are the kind of things that when you start to go through the bike, you start to make yourself. You know, these are lowbrow grips, but this bike has been sitting outside at some point in its life because they have turned to sort of that like gross, flaky rubber, whatever. But these are the old Coke bottle style grips. You can see they kind of puffed up too. What else? Oh, big upgrade here is a cycle electric onboard regulator and alternator. So here's the regular stock regulator, but as you can see, it's not hooked up because this has been set up. which is kind of nice actually. I like seeing upgrades like that. This is the stock fender for 71, but it's been painted over a bunch of times, so the rivets that are usually here are kind of shallow right now. And it's got an old school tombstone style taillight, like a knucklehead panhead style taillight on it, that has an LED bulb in the back. The shocks are actually, they look like stock shocks. They actually look like originals. They seem to work pretty well. The seat is a aftermarket seat, probably from the 70s, and actually it's quite comfortable, but it's got a rip in it and it's too low for me to sit on it. Something that is kind of neat is the rocker boxes normally have a rubber tip with a hex head here, and instead somebody's put these pointy things on it, which looks kind of cool, you know, a little bit rock and roll. This is the interesting part here. These are the headlights. So you have low beam, off, and then high beam, and this is the kill switch. So that is kill, that is run, and there's no middle position. It's a 2-pole switch. Ironheads did actually come with toggle switches, by the way, in the eyebrow. I think 59 to 62-ish. They used a single toggle switch and an oil light right here. And we wouldn't have this square piece. It was all filled in, and it would be a smooth cover. Those covers, by the way, are like $300 when you find one. This bike is obviously a much later eyebrow, and this is owner modified, but it is kind of in the spirit of an old Ironhead. The paint's not great. You can see there's a ton of little dimples on it, but you know, inside the tank is actually, I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if we can get some light in there. It's actually fairly clean inside. Here we go. It's not terrible. I actually don't see any rust in there, so you know, good on me. What else can I tell you about this bike? It's got a lot of things that you need clean up. Obviously the front fender's missing. The foot pegs don't match, because here's one peg that's missing its rubber. Here's the other peg that's just falling apart. Neither one of them is stock. Ironheads, by the way, are right side shift. Most big twins were left side shift, you know, forever. But when Harley was building this bike, they were building it to compete with the British. And for some reason, when they built the K models and then the Sportsters that came after, they made them all right side shift. I think it was to, you know, for the home market, so that they could, you know, be attractive to a British rider as well, or to someone who was coming back from World War II, because those bikes were, the K bikes came out in 52, I think 51 or 52. There's a lot of holes drilled in this back bracket. This looks like it had a lot of support in the past, but otherwise it's the stock fender support brackets. I don't know if you can see under there the wiring. Actually, the wiring is kind of interesting. It's all been redone, and some of it's very nice, like this cloth wrap, but then some of it is just sort of hanging out in there loose, you know, nothing is bolted down. So that's something that we're going to have to fix. One other thing I should point out is somebody's obviously been into this clutch, because that is not the stock fitting for the stock Ironhead clutch, nor is that the stock fill plug. That one actually has a hole in it, so it looks like it's been safety wired at some point. So somebody's been into the primary side of this bike at some point, and actually it kind of shows too, because this is a very heavy clutch pull. You can't feel it here, but man, does it take everything to pull that clutch. This is gonna suck in traffic. The clutch pull on my 74 is much lighter, so that's just, I don't know if there's like an aftermarket clutch in there and that's why it has that weird setup, or if he just cobbled something together and I need to buy a bunch of stock pieces. I can tell you, clutch parts for this bike are not cheap. They run in the neighborhood of like $300 to $500 per clutch. I mean, it's Harley Davidson. Everything HD stands for $100. So, yeah, we're going to certainly find that out as we dig into it. But overall, mechanically, which is the nicest part about this bike, is that it runs great. And let me just show you real quick. There is a starting procedure to this. So I will put the key in here, right? Go over here, make sure the fuel is on. Actually, should make sure there's fuel in it, okay? Now this has to be down. That is your kill switch. And then Harley Davidson Ironheads, they have 3 positions to the key switch. The first position is just ignition. The second position is lights, right? And you can actually see it here. Off, first position, second position turns on the taillight. So you start them in the first position. You don't start them in the second position. Normally, the starter button would be right here, but for some reason this one has a block-off plate, which is interesting. I've not seen that before. The starter button is actually an aftermarket one right here. And that's a cold start. Now, I didn't choke the carburetor because if you come over here, you'll see it. So, whoever tuned this has it tuned so that it runs slightly rich and will start just from that startup. So let's go take it up the hill for a ride. Heavy, but it shifts nice. I'm in the wrong gear. Brakes work pretty well too. Something you ought to know about Ironheads. Up until I think 76 or 78, they vent to air. So this is the vent pipe right here, and if the thing sits and it collects oil, it sumps and will puke out a little bit on the ground, and then it'll proceed to drip for a while. But yeah, I'm not really seeing any places where there's like any major leak, and it doesn't look like it's spewing oil. So I guess one last thing I can show you is the kicker, the kickstart here. For some reason this pedal doesn't want to stay in. It always keeps falling out. Ironheads have kind of a funny kick pattern to it, but I think this one, the kicker might actually be slipping a little bit. So let's turn the fuel on, turn power on, set to ignition. All right, and even though I cold started it with the electric start, let's see what it takes to kick start it. All right, see, there's a lot of swing in this that's just straight down, right? That's where, this is the kick engagement point for any Ironhead. And this one doesn't like to come back up, this pedal. You have to kind of walk it up a little bit. But let's see. All right. Yeah, and there's the famous Ironhead kickback. One more shot. No, doesn't like being kicked, huh? shot of fuel. I hate this passenger peg. It's way too long. And it's attached to the swing arm, by the way, so no suspension for your passengers. Yeah, you can see it's slipping now. So that's going to have to get looked at. So that's about it for this week of Mechanical Advantage Garage. I made a dumb purchase of a 1971 Ironhead that's got a questionable history and a lot of interesting little problems, but mechanically otherwise seems fine. I mean, it runs great. It doesn't have any bogs, doesn't have any lags. Jumps right on the throttle. It's not making any weird noises down in the bottom end. I think the biggest mechanical issue is that kickstarter that slips. But the biggest hurdle to eventually reselling it is going to be that Connecticut Blue Tag. Otherwise, it'll just be a fun bike to ride around, tour around on, have fun, and enjoy. I'll make some upgrades, clean it up, just sort of go over things and make it a fun little project tour. So hopefully I'll have this interspersed with GTO content as I prep for Power Tour this year. I actually have a GTO video coming up soon, so I'll put that out. And yeah, keep watching. I'm glad you guys are enjoying my channel, and I'll see you in the next episode.